Hi, everyone. Keelan has...
Now we invite you to be part of the creative process and help us workshop this script, or these scripts, I should say. Please mute yourselves for the interim until you're called on by either myself or Ginger. If you'd like to ask a question, you can virtually raise your hand. Or also there's like the clap emoji you can do. That's also fun if you want to do a little reaction. Just something so that we know to call on you. Or you can also directly message one of us. Try not to use the chat box otherwise, unless it's an emergency. And yeah, let's begin.
So we're focusing on works and conversation, which means that we have two writers this time, and we want them to talk with each other and to you about their works. So I would like to introduce Jay Mehta, who grew up in New Jersey and now lives in the greater Philadelphia area. So he's an educator with a BA in creative writing from Penn State and a master's in secondary English education from Arcadia University. He's an educator and a YA novelist, and his goal is to make young people inspired to read and write.
And we also have Tom Huang, who is a writer and director. He's a Warner Brothers Workshop graduate, a CBS and ABC TV staff writer, a fellow at the Film Independent Screenwriting Lab as well. His recent film, Find Me, has won multiple festival awards and is now currently streaming on Amazon Prime. Yay. So yeah, let's get started. Let's get into this. You guys, Tom, Jay, you guys can unmute yourselves if you. Hey y'all, how you doing?
Hey, good.
So what did you think of the reads? What did you think of each other's works?
Exactly. There we go. Keelan got it.
I thought Jay's short was really interesting, and I really appreciated also a diverse look at the conversation with the East Indian and a Chinese American who are discussing it. I mean, it felt like a normal conversation between any Americans, which is great. Just seeing the faces that are different and diverse, which made it special.
Definitely. That's a whole other aspect to diversity that we don't really talk about in media. Just being able to have normal conversations without it being racially charged is an aspect of diversity that is not often held up in popular media, in television and film especially. And so it's a breath of fresh air once you have two people of color who are able to have, just a simple conversation. it's activism in itself, unfortunately. Jay, what did you think about Tom's piece?
Yeah, well, first, Tom, thanks for that feedback. And yeah, I really loved your piece as well, especially with the interactions between the characters. I think even given the format of having to do this virtually, like I could really tell, which characters which and kind of what they were bringing to the table, so to speak. And I really like the noir aspect of it, like certain dialogue, like I heard, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely what they would be saying in a noir piece. And I think, having our works paired together about this, connection of, people who are just meeting each other for the first time, or they're just this sort of fire or spark of interest in each other. And then, one line of dialogue or action leads to the next. And I could certainly see that with Eric and Eleanor. So yeah, I just thought the piece overall was great.
Cool, thank you.
Had very different challenges as far as writing is concerned, as far as keeping the era in mind, especially. I mean, Tom, for you had to balance not only the weight of your subject matter, but also keeping in mind the noir feel, making sure these actors or these people really are speaking in a way that is believable of the 1940s. And for you, Jay, you have to deal with COVID. You have to deal with making sure that you're making it feel as relevant to the era as possible. And in your action lines, that's reflected, especially, the references to people's masks and the distance and all that kind of stuff. How did you guys kind of work with the balance of making sure that you were making a statement that was modern and relevant, but also staying true to the time period or the period-esque piece-ness, if that's a word, of your writing?
Well, I guess I'll go first. You know, I think mine is it's much more clear. You know, I wanted to make a classic 1940s film noir, and I don't even know if people really talk like that in the 40s, but in the movies they did. You know, there's a certain cadence and a certain way they talked. It's very, of course, you know, it's very recognizable. And I just want to give a big kudos to the actors in my film, like Johnny, who's here, and everybody else. Like I had emailed everyone and asked everyone to like at least take a look at, you know, that kind of a film or a scene from the film, so they could pick that up, and they all did a really great job of it. I think the tough thing for me is like, you know, I want us to feel realistic. I also wanted to feel like a 40s film noir, but there's just like a fine line between you know, between making it feel like it's like a satire as opposed to homage, right? You know, I want them to speak like they did in those days, but sometimes it can sound ridiculous. And so I think, especially with Johnny, like once he started going, like he started feeling more comfortable with this kind of cadence in his talk. It was easier for him to feel like a more real person as it went along. So that's the thing that's I still am struggling with in the film is this, you know, the script, which is why it's great that you guys let me do this. Is I want to see what it looks like when people talk like this. Like, you know, where does it still feel like a classic noir, and where does it feel like maybe it feels a little over the top, you know?
I'm sure Jay has a lot of experience in the year 2020 to put into the film.
Well, certainly we all do, right? Especially like I guess Keelan, you were saying like, you know, it's like dealing with COVID. I mean, like we're all dealing with COVID, right? And you know, I do just want to shout out my friend Reed. You know, we could see him in the video here. He is actually my friend who was there when I had the inception for this concept. I was walking with him up the stairs to his dorm when I visited him like in the summer, and I just, you know, happenstance just thought like, well, what would it be like to just have two strangers, you know, one might be living in a building, one might not be, and they're just talking to each other, but they're spaced apart for whatever reason at the top and the bottom of these, you know, fictional set of stairs. It could be anywhere, it could be any place. And my mind was just contemporary. So it just happened to be that in 2020 is when I had this thought. So then, you know, combine two and two together, and now it's just about strangers. But then what does it look like if those strangers are actually having a conversation? There's potentially like some, you know, romantic tension or flirting going on there, but it's also during COVID. So that sort of was just an afterthought. I guess if I had this concept either in 2019 or post whenever COVID is over, it might have looked different, but it was just kind of like coincidental that this thought happened during this year. And then just subtle stuff like I was just poking fun with it really because I haven't really seen this happen, a conversation between two people, because even then it's like strangers, like that's a no-go because we're even just like distancing ourselves from people that we already know. So then it's like, oh, keep your mask on, or like you know, it's just keep away, keep the distance and stuff like that. So all that stuff I was just kind of just experimenting with. So
Two mirroring relationships in which there's romantic tension between two couples, but they're in very different genres and time periods. And viewing each other's works, what sort of similarities can you find? What differences?
Well, definitely small talk. I mean, you know, that's usually how it starts. So I think that I think, you know, the interesting thing for me is that, you know, the actual dance of flirting with someone or like building some chemistry of two strangers is the same. It's the same kind of form, but it's just, you know, you're just talking about different kind of things. You know, and I think that that's what I saw between these two is like, you know, it just starts out with just, you know, to make it feel real, it just starts out just talking about just regular things, and then the trick is how do we make that step to something more than just small talk. Yeah, so I think that's what I really felt with it, which is like I think it was very different kind of conversations, and four very different kind of people, but the structure is kind of the same.
yeah, I would agree with Tom on that. Especially because like, you know, I think the virtual format is once again an interesting thing because obviously like we can hear about like, the Mansonar internment, or, like the thing about COVID or wearing the mask and such. But because we're in a virtual space, it's kind of like boiling those structures down in a way. And then you see two people interacting, and there's almost this, I think, like universal quality of, just as Tom was describing, like just how small talk converts into like real talk between two people, and how they're allowing each other to be in each other's space just for whatever like moment that they can share with each other. So I think that's the universal quality that was there.
I think just for your piece, Jay, I think what I was hoping for, that maybe, this is just my view on it. So I think, obviously just take it with a grain of salt, because it is, do what you feel is interesting to you. But I really wanted that conversation to build to something bigger at the end. It's like, I thought the interaction with him was very real and very nice. I was hoping that like they would reach something where they found some sort of tie together, where it was building to something, and then I'm just spitballing here, but like it builds to something, and right when they get to the point where they might get that real big connection, she has to leave. Right. And I think that would make that, when they come back together at the end, like much stronger. So that would be the only thing that I would say is like, what you're talking about is completely right. I just think that for a small piece like this, that maybe it could build to something bigger. I don't know if that's what you want. It could be that this could be a piece just about, a conversation that just feels like a conversation, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that feedback, and just getting different kinds of feedback in addition to hear. I definitely want something like that. I've kind of like played around in my head, even just a different scenario of what they would be talking about, because I think that's also important. And I've played around with the idea of like, if in fact they have romantic tension or not, or let's say like, they have different relationships with each of their parents. Maybe one parent is going through something like COVID related, and the other one is just not having a good dialogue with their parent, and then they're just talking to each other about their own relationship with their parents, and then they're like, oh wait, I'm also speaking to you. Who are you as a person? So definitely, like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, right? Like this idea just came to me like spur of the moment. And one of the things I spent in other writing pieces, like this one being like not too much thought around necessarily the content aspect of it, but you're right. Like I think definitely it would pay off more if there was kind of that like setup, and then there's that build up. All of a sudden they have this connection, and then boom, Priscia's got to leave. So yeah, I'll definitely be working on that aspect of the piece for sure. Thank you.
Cool. I can't wait to see where it goes next.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. But there are some other people on this call that are non-video participants, and I would like to invite those people, if you would like, to turn on your cameras and join us. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Johnny.
Hi.
There's a couple others. Are you shy? Hold on. Can we show non-video participants as just names?
Possibly. I don't know. We'll have tech.
You don't have
If the magic man behind the the Zoom call can figure that out, that would be fantastic. But in the meantime, in between time, I'd like to turn it over to the audience for a moment, just to get your questions, your feedback. Also, Johnny, you were in the piece, Loyal Betrayal, so anything that you might have to say about both the pieces in general. How are your feelings? How are your feelings as an actor doing a virtual Zoom call table read situation? I don't know if you have any experience doing that before, but just I would like to turn it over to you guys to see what you have to say to the writers.
Cool. Thanks everyone for a couple of great pieces to watch on a Friday evening. Jay, really great work with your script. I think really capturing that slice of 2020 life with strangers is a big part of I think our COVID experience, at least here on the East Coast, where strangers are more likely to meet because where Tom is, La La Land, people don't interact. They don't interact, they just drive by each other. And
wow,
Yeah, no, it's okay. Okay, I have some built-in disdain for Los
I'm
Angeles,
just mad.
but no, it's okay. Oh, Ginger's like face palming because
Hey,
this is
I
supposed to
also
be positive.
really
I have a very hard time like maintaining full positivity. So you let me speak, and then I don't know what
tried
happens.
to try to hide how I feel about LA. There's some LA
Uh,
people here.
but anyway, so yeah, so Tom briefly spoke about how obviously with the noir style, it is something that I think for me the first take that we did was very helpful to get into that cadence, as Tom said, because watching the put together product, I saw myself in the opening few scenes. Even in the second take, I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing oh wait, I was like, oh snap, I'm doing I it felt like I was doing like a farce on stage, and because of the way that not even in the cadence, not even in the way that I was speaking, but in my reactions to things, it was a lot more animated. And then as I just lived longer in the world of the piece, I think that noir filter did even develop in that amount of time, that short amount of time that we had, because I did, it wasn't like I was having different impulses or thoughts. It was just the filter was better built after a certain amount of time. And so that I was able to feel that difference, and it was fun. It was fun to journey through.
There's definitely an impression of what 40s noir should be. And what you say is like in the beginning, maybe you really take the dramatic aspects of it. But in the end, they're still actors and they're still using really similar techniques. And when you live in that world, it's really diverse. Like noir film isn't just the few that are really famous. It's a huge wide range of different stories and characters.
Right, and yes, and I think I want to on the record say that I think Tom undertook a tremendous feat in even attempting this, and if you guys haven't watched the short film version of this script, I'm hoping Tom can provide that to the crowd here on the chat, but. I think he's created a very well-tailored and specific piece with both form and content to be something to applaud. So I think really impressed by the piece.
Not bad for an LA guy, huh? I guess.
Yeah, you know what? Decades there, it hasn't rotted your brain yet.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Alrighty. Wow. Yes, we definitely we want to plug the recording that was done, the film version. As soon as this is over, we'll possibly put that out on our social media pages.
Oh no, not yet, because it's still going out to film festival. So.
Oh, not yet? Okay, never mind. I take that back. I retract my statement. No one saw that. Reed, you had your hand up. Do you have?
Yeah, I had a few thoughts, I guess, not only as we were watching, the two readings play out, but as we were kind of discussing the differences between the two pieces here. What I was thinking a lot about was the relationship between context and content. For these two pieces specifically, we have two different stories with these characters, like we said, that had kind of romantic connotations and kind of things that they were thinking about in their relationships together and how things were starting to develop. But when we have one that has that 40s noir kind of setting, the context, of course, plays a big piece in what the world looks like and maybe in some of what their content of their conversation might be like, as where when you have a somewhat similar relationship in a completely different context, like in Strangers, you have those two characters who are kind of getting to know each other in a more tentative and uncertain situation, like with COVID, right? Like, Jay had that idea while we were walking through the stairwell, like you said, at my dorm at college. And my experience very much with college during this time has been that you bump into people and then it doesn't really necessarily go anywhere because there is that kind of hesitation and the barrier of, what's happening in the world and everything with social distancing and all that. And so while I agree with kind of what Tom was saying about how it'd be nice to have some payoff, I guess, with their relationship and to see it go somewhere, I also feel like keeping context in mind, it is very realistic to me that it doesn't, at least in its current state. The fact that their connection doesn't necessarily develop into much more than just like a happenstance speaks or rings true to at least like my experience has been in that similar context, if that makes sense. So I guess
I totally agree. I think that what I was just more talking about is like to build something in the conversation, not with the relationship, right. But I think what you're saying is really great. That like, it's a different world where like even if you get a connection with someone, you might not be able to do anything about it because of COVID, right? It's like, it's just not the same where it's like, oh, let's go meet at a bar, let's go someplace. No, it's like, let's do a Zoom call, and it's just not the same.
Oh, geez.
Right, and here we are on Zoom. Yeah.
Exactly.
That hit me in the feels. But I do think that brings up a lovely topic of content and how you reveal character through dialogue. I think both of you do it to varying degrees and to a lot of success. I mean, Tom, one of the lines that jumps out to me off the top is when Eleanor talks about her husband having to bring him the soju before he dies of being a non-alcoholic. That tells you a lot about their relationship. Right off the bat, you know that she has a more subservient role. He's an alcoholic, he's a drunk, although we kind of got inklings of that before. You kind of get a feeling of how she feels about it, the way she says it, the character behind it. That single line tells you a lot about who she is as a character, but also who her husband is as a character and how their relationship is. I think for you, Jay, when they're having that conversation in the stairwell, it's a lot of surface level dialogue until we get to the end. And that's where we start knowing them as people. And we start talking about his wants and desires to have a bar. She starts talking about her brothers. He wants to meet her brothers. For why, I don't know. I think that there's a lovely exploration of character through dialogue. But I do want to say, are there any ways that you kind of saw in each other's writing, tips, tricks, techniques that you kind of want to use to enhance that kind of your dialogue, or even just small things as the relationship between your two romantic leads? Anything that you saw in each other's works that kind of like, that you would like to low-key, stealing is the best form of flattery, I like to say, as long as you don't get caught, but anything that you can take from each other and kind of grow your own writing.
Well, for me, it's actually what I got from it that I'm not that wouldn't apply to the Loyal Betrayal, but my next film that I'm looking to shoot. It's I'm looking to shoot this in March, and so it's a modern day piece, and so this film, I had to deal with COVID somehow. It wasn't in the script before. The script was written before COVID, and so it was great to see Jay deal with that subject and. Not deal with it directly, but like just in little ways that as they're talking, like keep adjusting your mask and what's up to your mask, those little things that like isn't the central part of the story, but it's essential to give that feeling of the time. And so these are little things that I had to like kind of like the script, this thing I'm shooting, I imagine is going to be when the pandemic calms down and the vaccine is there, so maybe a year from now. But still, COVID is still very much in everyone's minds, and when people are watching the movie, it's going to be in everyone's mind. So I have to like incorporate it somehow to, because it's such a big part of our lives now, and it will be for the next few years at the very least, that it has to be accounted for.
During crowd scenes, like at the subway, everyone's crowded and you're going, why aren't you wearing any masks?
Yeah.
On there.
Well, it's actually one of the characters in my film that I'm shooting is a germaphobe. So when I first wrote it, it's like, oh, she's so weird. She's like a germaphobe. Like now it's like, everybody's a germaphobe. Like this, the stuff I put in the script, which would seem kind of like over the top, now is normal. So like, it's not so weird anymore. So I had to like address that. and I had to like find other ways to make her character what I thought was before different, but like now is not different at all because it's a new normal.
I've gotten to the point where I'm almost Clorox wiping apples. That's how much of a germaphobe I've become at this point. It's like, you're totally right. This whole era has just been very much a transformative experience. Some of the things that we used to look at as blasé, like when someone left the bathroom without washing their hands, before I would be like, okay, that's disgusting. But now I would be like I just, woo! Anyways, sorry. Reed, go ahead.
Tom, something you just said there, I think connected really well to something that was mentioned in the beginning of this meeting as well, where you said that, you know, COVID and the circumstances surrounding it were kind of a part of the setting of Strangers, but not really the topic of discussion or like the main focus. In the same realm, I think when, I think it might have been you, Kaylin, who mentioned in the very beginning that representation, like with race, right? Part of what makes it authentic is when that isn't the content of the story, that, oh, you're trying to like focus on the fact that we're being diverse. It's just the quality of the story of what's happening. And my sister talks about that to me all the time because she is lesbian. And like gay representation in movies, of course, is just horrible. And what she is always kind of saying to me is that she's frustrated to see that it's hard to find not only movies that are diverse in that way, in, you know, showcasing other sexualities than just straight people, but the ones that do fail to have an interesting plot that doesn't revolve around their differences being the conflict of the story, like the main conflict, right? Where you have a movie like Love, Simon, where it's this gay white man whose whole conflict of the story is that he's not being accepted for being gay, when it might be more authentic for people who need to be represented to have a gay character who, that isn't what the whole point of the story is, right? They have a story and they're experiencing something in their life and that just happens to be part of who they are. So I feel like that's something that Strangers captured well for me, at least in this context, was that not only is it something that isn't necessarily directly discussing race, but it's also not directly discussing COVID. And all of these things are just kind of factors that make the story authentic, because you try to have this real meeting between people who don't really know each other at all. And these are all factors that are, of course, then affecting the things they're talking about and the way they're kind of perceiving the situation and interacting. But that's not, you know, that's not the point of it per se. So
Okay.
I like that a lot.
9 minutes left. So I think right now is a good time to move to maybe thoughts about how the work can be improved. Right? We're not just here to read the work, we're here to workshop it and make it better. Ryan, you're a writer. You've been here. You're here.
Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, hi, how you doing? Yeah, can you hear me okay? I don't know, my microphone is a little flaky.
That's
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that these are both very interesting scripts and the readings are great. When Tom talks about small talk, you know, there's a naturalness about Jay's, the interactions between those two characters in the awkwardness, even in the awkwardness, there's a naturalness of the dialogue. And then on the other hand, Tom, you know, it's very smooth. And I don't know if this is a compliment or a criticism, but you know, it's Bogey McCall. It's a Bogey McCall. And I don't know if Johnny wanted to, you know, kind of be inspired by that, but that's what I got from that. And you talk about, you know, making it more stereotypically, you know, sounding of that, but it sounded, and it surprised me. It surprised me because you're using the camp as kind of a backdrop for this noir story. And yet you do have this referential, you know, points about the camps, but you're not kind of, you know, shouting the inequities of the whole situation. So I really enjoyed that. And you had one line there that was from another movie, right? It was that one thing. Now, was it supposed to be a satirical?
It's a reference? Yeah, it's actually, there's there's lines from two different movies or references to two different movies in the script. And what I want to do throughout the whole feature script was this, you know, since it is, I want to make a classic film noir, I want to pay homage to other film noirs. So, you know how to whistle, don't you? That's a very famous line from a film noir. And then also the whole exchange about going too fast. That was actually a direct, not direct, but an indirect reference to Double Indemnity, which is like one of the first film noirs in America that was ever made, that started the whole film genre, film noir genre. So part of this film is for people who haven't seen film noirs before and can like first experience like what it's like, but part of it's also for people who love film noirs like me. All these little references, little Easter eggs in there, so that people can like, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about, for those people. So there are different levels of, I'm hoping anyway, of enjoying the film in different ways.
Great, yeah, because I didn't know whether that was supposed to be, they're playing it straight. They're playing those
Yeah.
lines straight rather than actually, so I just was wondering about that. So we're supposed to get that reference, ourselves, yeah.
And if not, then it's such a great line that I'll take credit for it. They're like, hey, yeah, I invented that whistle thing. Yeah, that's me. I'm pretty good. Yeah. So
yeah.
And actually, I asked Johnny to watch Humphrey Bogart in Maltese Falcon and Big Sleep if he had time. So he is actually referencing, Bogart is one of the guys he's referencing when you read, and I thought he did a great job of taking Bogart but also making it his own, which made it more real for me.
I want to look back to Ryan's comment on the awkwardness of Jay's script. And I feel like, and I want to go back to Tom's comment on how it could be built up. I do feel like that the awkwardness lingered for quite a long time. And that was sort of the state they were in for most of the conversation. And there could have been, I do like the artistic choice of having them not really come to really a relationship at the end, but they decide at the split second moment, at the last moment, to come back out of their doors and see if they can try to start a sort of relationship. Anything, it's unclear if it's platonic or romantic, that's fine. That sort of depends on the viewer, the watcher. But I do agree that there needed to be a little more build-up to go from awkward, and they were kind of bickering a little bit, and it was a little cute in a rom-com way, but I felt like maybe you could have moved on from that a little earlier and had them have an emotional moment or a really truthful moment where they're vulnerable with each other. And then, of course, the Uber comes, and then, of course, they have to think about whether or not they should stay connected as people in the time of COVID. And then that might be, that's why we see them come out of those doors and we see them meet each other on the stairwell again. They have a reason for it.
Yeah, I think.
For sure. Sorry, go ahead, Keelan.
No. You're good. Go for it.
So I definitely agree with that feedback, and kind of just like piggybacking off of Tom's feedback, and I definitely am excited to go back into the pages and just see like just line by line like the escalation of going from like here's just two random people and they're awkward and clumsy and whatever, and then like I guess what's the point that they cross that and now they're actually talking to each other like they want to become something more than strangers. And I guess I can kind of yank that back a little bit from the ending and bring it more towards like like the 1/3 or like 1.5 mark, so it speeds up, because I remember in the first take like it was slower, and in the second take like it sped up so much. Keelan, I won't say verbatim what you recommended the actors do, but it definitely helped. And I think because it is intended to just be like a 5-minute in and out conversation, managing the minutes of that conversation is really crucial to making sure that I'm able to hit on the different elements of what this relationship could be, and introducing elements of reality, but also giving people what they want to leave the film with, which is like, oh, what's that moment that could have been. So definitely looking forward to working on that aspect.
And my suggestion to you is, and this is a suggestion, I don't know if you want to work this way, but you have a great base now for this conversation, like almost reverse engineer it, like what is it that like makes them want to run back together in the end of the end of the film, right?
Okay.
Figure that out and then just work backwards. You already have a great beginning, and then they kind of in the end they'll meet together. That's my suggestion for that.
We only have 3 minutes left now, and we wanted to make sure Tom has some feedback too. So I think Keelan and I did discuss like the nature of noir films does have a misogynistic edge to it, and we feel like Keelan, if you want to jump in, feel free to. But No.
No, I can. Yeah, sure. There was a conversation that we had, mainly regarding the speed at which the two of them get together. There's a dichotomy between your two pieces, especially in the romance department, because in Jay's it feels like the romance has slowed down, whereas in yours, Tom, it feels very sped up. These two characters meet, they rapidly fall in love, and then by the end of this scene, or this sequence, I should say rather, they're making
Tangled.
sweet, tender, yeah. Anyways, it felt very fast. Now that is our, we had a conversation about that mainly just because there is a edge to noir that it has that inherently built into it. So it is kind of an honest portrayal of that era and of the 40s and of that feeling, especially of the men of that era and the gender roles of that era as well. But to us, it felt a little fast, let's say.
And I would say one thing to your point is actually a lot of scenes were cut out since we had to do this is a whole feature. So to make that conversation build just within the 15 pages we were talking about, I cut out actually about 3 or 4 scenes so that we could see it all together. So that's probably partially why it felt fast. The other thing is, and I think what you guys are bringing up is a good point that I need to think about, is that this first initial hookup is not actually about love. This first initial hookup is about like, man, we're trapped in this camp, and I got some testosterone, I got some things built up, and it's about that chemistry to like, when it's just back to the days where you're flirting with someone and like you just happen to get to the point where like you feel that chemistry and you want to act on it. That's what that first part of the relationship is. As the film is longer, so after that moment, their relationship actually grows where they become closer actually, and it's not about just the physical part of it. But I definitely don't want it to feel like it's not. That's not justified them getting together. If it feels too fast, then that is a problem.
Well, sorry to
Also,
jump in, but for me personally, we talked about tropes a little bit. Reed brought up the tropes of how gay characters are treated in film. There's a lot of tropes when you're dealing with women, people of color, people of different sexual orientations. And one of those big tropes, especially when you're dealing with female characters, is the crying is romantic. And the escalation from her bearing her soul into us going into passionate lovemaking, just it can edge into that uncomfortableness, that feeling of misogyny.
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely. I think first of all, I think Junior just brought up that like in film noir, like the idea of the evil woman, the femme fatale, and the way that women are dressed, and the blonde, that whole thing is like, it's not misogynistic, but it certainly is. It's slightly demeaning to women for sure, and that's something that you got to that I have to balance here. It's like I want it to still be a classic film noir. With the classic characters, but I don't want to get too much into some of the things that happens in the classic film noir that were like the stereotypes of the 40s of like, where women should be and where men should be. I think the one great thing about the femme fatale is that, for the most part, they control their destiny. They're not beholden to any man. They're usually the person that like, that controls what happens in the plot. And that's what I appreciate about them. But definitely, if you watch a lot of these 40s films, just in general, like the way men treat women is not something that I want to keep showing from a classic film.
Yeah, definitely. Even the way that women are portrayed in some films as the femme fatale, as you say, there was the code. I don't remember what the exact name of the code was, but that if you had a empowered female character, they often got their just desserts at the end, as far as the movie was concerned.
No.
So,
God, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, and I'll just say for this script, Eleanor comes out on top. So just so that's good. Just so you know, yeah, that's a good point. And in this case, she's not. Yeah, what she's doing, and I think I want to really want these characters. I want everything that these characters go through to be in a gray area. So every one of these characters are gray. They're not good. They're not bad. There's some things about them that like, oh, you definitely, he's a protagonist actually, but he's also very dark, and actually in this film he commits murder. So you have a protagonist who's like a good guy, but like because of all the circumstances of what happened, being imprisoned wrongly by your country can change a man, and that's what I want to show here. Is that like he's a good person, but he's got change. He's not all good, and she's not all good, and she's not all bad either.
I feel like we can talk about this for the rest of the night, but we do have a lot of time for a workshop, so we'll have to close things up. All right. Everyone can submit additional commentary to the writer by emailing unfinishedworks@film-lab.org, and we'll make sure your comments are anonymized and sent to the writer.
We also have another workshop on January 15th. That'll be our first workshop of 2021. We have the lovely Ryan Yip who'll be joining us for that. His piece is being workshopped. And we also have Daniel S. Park who'll be joining us for that as well.
And that's January 15th at the same time, 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. Right.
Yeah, keep track of the social media for any updates.
Okay, thank you for attending.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's a wrap.
And thanks to Matt for putting this on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you guys.
Good night, y'all.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.